A simple task. Kate Santangelo picks up her 7-year-old daughter Grace from school, something she's waited years to do. Do you recall how often you were able to pick your daughter up from school?
Oh my gosh, never.
But that all changed in April. She quit her 15-year career in sales to be home full time with her kids.
I was working endless hours and traveling a lot.
If COVID didn't happen, do you think that you still would have quit your job?
No, no, I think I'd still be there. Yeah, without a doubt.
She's one of millions quitting the workforce in recent months, a record 4.4 million quits in September. It's being called the Great Resignation.
We had so much time that we had to be sitting in our homes and spending time with people that we live with and just shifting priorities.
And she's one of 4.7 million business applications filed from January through October of this year, a 34% increase from the same time period in 2019. She founded Monmouth Moms, a resource guide for parents.
It allows me to take off if I need to bring, my kids to the doctor or, offer more flexibility in terms of when I can even schedule appointments for them.
It's not just moms leaving the workforce. Americans are retiring in greater numbers too. What am I looking at behind you guys right now?
That's our RV. Yeah, that's our RV. You got the background.
Scott and Mary Banks retired early this September at 57 and 59 respectively and are road tripping across the country.
Packed up, strapped down, and ready to head down the road.
Scott quit his finance job. Mary left real estate.
I said, what would you think if we did it now instead of waiting 3 more years?
And I'm like, I pushed all my chips in. I'm all in.
1.5 million Americans were on pace to retire during the pandemic. Instead, that number more than doubled to 3.6 million.
And it was just that thought of, gosh, wouldn't it be just a tragedy if we spent all this time working for our retirement and then right near the finish line, you catch a horrible disease and die and never get to enjoy your retirement.
So they capitalized on the hot housing market, sold their home, and hit the road. How is life on the road compared to the jobs that you left behind?
Gosh, I wish I could say it was tough, but no, it's great. I do not miss at all working right now.
The Banks clearly enjoying their early retirement there. Now, the industries with the highest quit rates are education, transportation, leisure, and hospitality. These are industries that before the pandemic were suffering from labor shortages. And of course, that's being felt much more acutely right now. And the Americans we spoke to who quit those industries said that they did it to look for higher wages, to look for more flexibility at work, and to be able to work from home so they didn't have to interact with as many people because of COVID fears. But Alex and Christy, clearly this pandemic has transformed the way that Americans are wanting to work and the work that they're willing to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is an update on the latest numbers that came out for resignation. So November has shattered August. August was at 4.3 million. Well, November was 4.5 million resignations. So, at first, economists were trying to say this is a good thing. That means people are looking for better paying jobs. Well, there's now stories coming out saying they're not so optimistic anymore. So 2021 was the year of the Great Resignation, a year when workers quit their jobs at historical rates. According to some, the trend has driven it was driven by economic and psychological shifts as employers struggled and often failed to tempt anxious staff to return to industries that have too often treated workers as dispendable. And that is true. Many of these companies have taken on that attitude. Oh, well, they do X, Y, and Z, they can be replaced. You're expendable. Well, the truth is more complicated. It is accurate to say that many people have quit their jobs in 2021. Quits. As to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, call them hit a high number. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I said August. It was September when there was 4.3 million people that left their jobs and was followed by a modest reduction of the trend in October. On Tuesday, the Labor Department said there were 10.6 million jobs at the end of November and 6.9 million unemployed people. 1.5 jobs per unemployed person. The number of quits hit a new high of 4.5 million, and that's what they're reporting for November. Quitting, most economists will tell you, is usually an expression of optimism. And yet, 2021 quits happened against a larger economic picture that remains difficult to interpret with confidence. Pandemic related cash from the government helped people weather the worst of, the pandemic. But much of that cash is gone now. Unemployment rates have fallen. That's because they don't count the people that are no longer getting unemployment. So it always will look like it's less people when there is, in fact, more. Fell in sharply from their highs, and the labor force participation rates, the percentage of people in the workforce or looking for a job, are up. All that while inflation looms, and we know what's going on out here with CV. All right. The reason for quitting and dropping out of the labor force is quite varied. The top reason cited by experts continue to be the lack of adequate child care and health concerns. Yeah, people are afraid they're going to catch something out there. Now exacerbated by, the variant that's out here. And while the framing of the Great Resignation placed some emphasis on the idea that even acknowledged workers are quitting from burnout and a sympathy with a budding anti work movement, there are just as many reasons to suspect many quit in search of better work opportunities, self employment, or simply higher pay. Some people are retiring and they're not going to ever return back to the workforce. Some people are going to raise their children and they're not going to return back to the workforce. Tellingly, some industries are seeing higher rates of quitting than others. Leisure and hospitality, retail, and healthcare being among the most affected. Mhm. They are generally low paying industry of jobs. Yes, they are. And those industries now have the highest number of job openings. And they said the gap is widening. Why not quit your $9 an hour job at a diner if the restaurant next door paid 10? While wage growth has been celebrated in the industry, facing tighter labor market conditions in recent months, it is worth noting that these wages, they're not keeping up with what's going on out here. See, it would have been nice if they would have given these increases, all throughout the decades. I think a lot of people would have been better off. But now they're giving you these increases and it's literally being swallowed up by the inflation. Okay. The recent trend towards higher pay exists in the context of decades of low wage growth, as until recently, wages in the US had stagnated. So they're saying, even though labor participation had a small increase in October, it is important to note that it remains below pre-pandemic levels. We know there are millions of people who are still out of the labor force because of health and safety concerns. We know that parents are out of the labor force because of the ongoing, care and responsibilities of their children. An economist at the US Census Bureau, this last aspect is particularly concerning as there is a growth gap between mothers and fathers and how they engage in the labor market. If we're really going to bring gender equality into the 21st century, we have to have a serious reckoning with established gender norms around care. So, her analysis of the employment outcomes of parents found that in September and October of this year, there were 1.4 million fewer mothers actively engaged with the labor force than those at the same time in 2019. Of course, that would be the case. Mothers with college degrees and telework compatible jobs were more likely to exit the labor force and more likely to be on leave than women without children. She also found that teachers are more likely to leave the labor force as compared to their counterparts in other industries. Mm-mm-mm. So, for those quitting in response to higher wages or greater health risk or greater care insecurity, it is not so simple to think that they would prefer not to work, but rather they cannot afford to keep the jobs they have. Yeah, because they're being paid such a low wage. Many of these people can barely make their rent and pay for food and additional bills that they may have every month. And not to mention there's so much burnout all across the industry, and you can see those articles out there as well. It's a lot of people burned out, and you got a lot of these employers that are still out here mistreating the few people that they have that are showing up for work. So this whole thing is really seriously a big mess. But y'all, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.